So today's video is going to be about what the downside of mulching might be. As you can see in those no-dig beds here, we mulched almost everything with straw this year. And before we dig into what might be a big downside or the most downside of mulching, I'm going to show you some examples why mulching is really beneficial to your plants. So first of all, if we take a look here next to the sweet corn and just dig a bit around, you see the color changes, it gets a bit darker, and it is just slightly moist down here, all the way down here. And the soil, can't really tell from the camera, but it is fairly moist, and it hasn't been raining here for about 3 weeks. We had a small downpour here, but yeah, no rain in sight, but the straw mulch is keeping it all moist, which helps the plants grow really nicely. Like this corn has grown significantly in the past 1 or 2 weeks, and part of the reason is because the straw or the mulch here is keeping the water in the soil. Another really good reason for mulching is that it keeps the unwanted plants, let's put it this way, fairly out of the garden beds. Here next to the garlic and the onions, there's hardly any or there are hardly any other plants growing, so they keep a few here, but mostly all the unwanted stuff is not coming through, so that's a big point for mulching. As comparison, we have our salad, basically our salads here in this bed without any mulch on it, and we have some growing here quite nicely, and also some spinach, which is going into blooming or into bloom. Unfortunately, it's been too hot and there are a lot of aphids on it, that's why the leaves look like this. But other than that, you have a lot of weeds just growing all over. Like this is all weeds, and we have some chard here, but in between a lot of weeds are just growing. The same goes for our pathways, like no weed is growing in our pathways. We didn't mulch those with straw, but with wood chips here, and they act a bit better than straw for keeping weeds out. As you can tell, here are some of the tomatoes, and you have some weeds, especially grass, smaller stuff growing in between, and the wood chips are a bit denser, so they keep the weeds out way better. So in this area we have all the zucchini and pumpkins growing, and you can tell it's not a real no-dig bed whatsoever. It's just like an area that we mulched with the wood chips here, and here you can definitely see the main reason what could cause problems for mulching or from mulching. And I'll show you, especially right here. That's a pumpkin we put in here, like I think must have been 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it hardly grew, and the leaves are super bright and don't really turn dark green. And the reason for that is the wood chips that it's planted in. Well, it's planted in the soil, but the wood chips on top, because they start to break down, and the bacteria in the mulch is causing to, or is binding all the nitrate in the soil. So those plants, this pumpkin and the other pumpkins here, are fairly light green, and the zucchini here started to grow better now, is a bit darker now, but they don't get as much nitrate as the out of the soil as other plants, and it takes a while, unfortunately. Like, they're gonna turn out okay. I'll show you an example where it's where the effect has like basically worn off, but they get set back like at least 2 or 3 weeks, those plants that are already put into mulch that has been actively degrading and pulling the nitrate out of the soil. So here we have some pumpkins that are or that were put into the soil, or I think 2 or 3 weeks before the other ones. Same goes for those zucchinis. The whole row of zucchinis down here has been put in there first, and the reason why they look way better than the rest is, got a corn growing here, is that the roots were able to dig deep enough into the soil already that they were able to pull out the nitrate from just deeper soil parts. And the other ones that are not as big yet, here, this pumpkin, the other ones here that are super light or light green, they just haven't rooted deep enough. But this will change in the next week probably. They'll start rooting really deep, and then they'll pull out the nitrate from below. Even though the mulch is taking out all the nitrate from the soil, especially from the upper levels, we're still going to mulch every year from now on, because it's just so beneficial for especially how dry it has become. Like I said, we're near Munich, and it hasn't really been raining for the past 4 or 5 weeks. We had like one small downpour, but even though we hardly watered in here, and the tomatoes are growing nicely, and even the stuff out here is growing nicely, and all the other beds, it's filling up the corn, the garlic, the onions, and all the other stuff. So mulching is definitely, a good option if you have the material, and it saves some time on watering, and but it sets back some of the plants maybe for a week or 2. So that's going to be it for today, and I'll give you an update on the garden soon.